I went to the New York Film Academy and I shot 4 short films on an ARRI-S. And I thought, whoa, the 16 millimeter, I've made it. Now everybody has the internet and the YouTube, but then you really would. I drove around with VHS copies of my short films in my trunk, and you would just pray someone would but I was too shy to say, oh, I make stuff. I used to work at South Park as a writer. I learned a lot about structure there and how to structure things. And because I wrote all these scripts, I had this meeting with Judd Apatow, and he said, if you want to control your destiny, you need to learn how to write. And I went, oh, great. And then I proceeded to write like about 5 or 6 terrible scripts. And then I finally said, okay, I got to do something. So I went and I hung out at Pixar a bit and used those kind of SNL connections of like, oh, can I come visit? And then would say, can I hang around and watch you guys work and just see how you do it? Because you seem to know how to do this. And I'm trying to figure this out, and especially at South Park, it was so funny because that show can be, obviously like very crude and everything, but and the humor, but it's very funny. But how much emotion would dictate the storytelling, and I would sit in a room with them, and we wouldn't be laughing at all. There's no jokes. It was just trying to figure out, what does this character want? Is that a believable feeling? Is that an emotion you can understand? Is that And I went, oh, that's what it is. Because I thought you had to sit down at SNL. It was all about, well, what's funny? Where's the next joke coming from? And that was very liberating to me. That feeling of like, okay, you don't have to be funny. You just, to tell a story, it's okay to tell the thing and make sure that all makes sense. And then if you want it to be funny, you can go back and try, try to put jokes in if they make sense. But everything else needs to, the logic and the emotion always have to kind of cohere. I read that Kurosawa's book, and he talks about that, where he's like, just learn to write, because he's like, you can make a great director can make a great movie with a great script, but a great director can make an okay movie with a bad script, and it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I would see that happening as an actor, though. You would sit and you would do a table read for a movie, and you'd go, well, this doesn't really work. And then you'd be on set and you'd be doing the scenes going, this really doesn't work. And then you sit in the premiere and you go, wow, that didn't work, You go, yeah, it doesn't. And we had all the money and these amazing effects and amazingly talented actors and technicians and everything. And so, yeah, it's much more cost efficient to figure it out on paper. I was just talking to a friend yesterday. I was giving him, he has a TV show, and he asked me to give him some notes, and I gave him some notes, and he goes, I could have used this when I was writing it because I can't go back and reshoot any of this, And I was like, but it was just, and I've gone through that where it's the worst feeling in the world, where someone goes, but what about that? And you go, how did we miss this? I've been obsessing over this for months and months and months. How did we miss that? So
yeah, I mean, a lot of movies end up not working, but you thought they were gonna.
You thought they were gonna. It is funny, like you see. I don't know about you guys, but I always feel like with things that don't work, you always go, "Oh, everybody's making a different movie." The director is making this movie, the actor is acting in another movie, the writer wrote a third movie, and the money people or the producer doesn't want to. Just wants the thing to get made. The directors I would observe as a PA who didn't know what they wanted. That was tough.
Yeah.
I worked on a movie where you go and you would see 7 cameras come off the truck and you go, oh, shit. They're covering it. They're covering it. Having the single camera really matters and shooting it as opposed to covering it. I think an actor really appreciates that. I really do. I think when you hear coverage, I think actors are a little bit smarter than that. When they hear we're covering it, because when I hear cover, I go, I might not be on camera. It might be a roving camera grabbing things. Do you know what I mean? But when it's locked on, it's a relationship with the operator. It's a relationship with the other actor. It's really something. I know on Barry, we would put, and this drove people crazy. We would put very wide angle lens right in someone's face. I'm friends with Alfonso Cuarón, and he called me. He goes, I just watched the final season of Barry. Are your actors allowed to look at each other? Because the camera's right in their face. I was like, oh, yeah, I'll work on that. Yeah. I go, I think they see me do it, and I don't mind acting to a mark on the lens. I'm fine. Yeah. So they go, oh, Bill's doing it.
Funny he should say that. He's the master of using wide-angle lenses. I mean, he used it much wider than I ever did.
Yeah, 16 millimeter
16
lens.
16 miller.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 16. He goes, no, but I go low so they can look at each other. No, you don't. But I do. Yeah, I do like knowing what lens is on. I like knowing what the camera is doing. And some people don't. Some people don't even want to think about it.
Right. Well, right. Some people don't at all, yeah.
Also, there's a thing that's kind of lost now, too, and we try to do it in Barry, was blocking. I hope this isn't like a lost art, because especially in television, if you're doing a TV show and show running stuff, your days are so, you got to move. And that's why everything is shot with like 3 cameras and snap zooms and that stuff, because it gives you all those different sizes and everything. But on Barry, we try to plan it enough so we could do it, that way.
So the schedules in TV are much, much shorter than features?
Yes, mine at least started that way, and then as you kind of get more, for a season and people like the show, they'll give you more leeway. But yes, they usually are incredibly short. It's like 5 days to do a 30-minute episode, and you're just running and gunning. And I remember saying, I was like, I'm going to shoot this all on one camera. And they're like, no, you're not. And then I was able to, but it was tough. It was a tough go. You just have to be very, very planned out. But it's like those low budget movies,
With Joel and Ethan, we would shoot like the 2-shot quite regularly, and the guys would say, I would say to them, well, do you want, which angle do you want to go in for? And they would look at each other and say, go in, why? Because they had watched it, and thought, well, I don't need to cover that. I don't need to go closer. I'm getting the relationship between the characters or whatever in that one shot. So it was quite often we would have more storyboarded shots than actually they would shoot, and we would break. End the day early.
Well, it's the difference between covering it and shooting it. And I was like, well, let's shoot it. Because you would sit those big dinner scenes and go, okay, what's the emotional peak of this? And you see those 3 directors that you work with, you just mentioned, they do that beautifully. The work you guys do with them is beautiful because they feel shot. They don't feel covered. They feel like there's a, I mean, it sounds whatever, but it is like you go back to, you watch silent movies, you know what I mean? And I'm just watching old silent movies with my daughter. She is interested in that. So we're watching those and I go, man, these are all shot. Nothing is covered because they have to tell the story. And that's just what you're saying. Like if you're sitting in a dinner scene and someone reveals something, well, the only close-up we really need is maybe that person's reaction. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then the rest can play in 3 shots and 2 shots. I was watching, what did I watch the other night? Oh, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? The first close-up of that is Richard Burton turning around when she mentions the son. And you realize you haven't seen a close-up in the whole movie. And she mentions their son, and it goes into his close-up. And I backed up. And I go, God, why did that just hit me in the chest? Well, because I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
It's planned, and it really works beautifully. Yeah. I love that stuff, man. But yeah, those 3 movies, I mean, I love all 3 of those directors. And Joel, I mean, the Coen brothers, it's like, for me and a lot of my friends, it's embarrassing because it's just, those movies are so part of our DNA. We talk about that on Barry a lot, which is like composed with natural light, knowing where the light source is coming from. Mm-hmm. Just very standard things is very important to us. And then you would watch it and people go, how'd you do that? I'm like, it's actually quite simple. It's doing less.
What is a showrunner? What's the difference between a director and a producer?
Well, it's hard for me because on Barry, it was me and this guy, Alec Berg, but it can be on different shows. So I don't think necessarily really worked on a show with the traditional showrunner because I kind of was doing that. With another guy. But what we did was, you go in and you're kind of overseeing everything. I can only speak in terms of Barry, but that was, you're in the room while the scripts are being written. You're overseeing the story. You're kind of the overseer of the story. You're like the governor of the content of everybody coming in. But because it's so big, you're hiring directors to be almost kind of an extension of you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But really good directors will come and bring it. Like we would have a Hiro Murai or Maggie Carey or someone like that. And they would come in and they're so good that you know, Minky Spiro is another person, Liza Johnson. You really see what they would bring to the material like a good actor, you know? But there's consistent crew people. So you have the same DP, the same editors, the same crew. So it's, you're kind of it's like an extension of you know what I mean? So mostly that's why you see showrunners are usually writers, you know, because it's very much a writer's medium in that sense. So you have Damon Lindelof or Vince Gilligan writing the shows and then having people go off and direct them and they're overseeing it. But it is always kind of like they're the final say, you know? So they have to kind of keep the whole thing in their head, you know?
Well, that sort of makes sense because with a series, if the director's coming in for an episode, there's been other episodes and you've got to continue that same story. But so when you actually shoot the material, are you on set with the director and saying to the director, maybe it shouldn't be this tight?
That's the toughest thing about that job. I mean, I always would say it's like, when you direct television, it's kind of like going to someone's house and planning Christmas for them. It's kind of a weird position to be in. So it's like having to be very open, but everybody's different. You know, Maggie Carey is my ex-wife. You know, she worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine with those guys and it's so kind of, you know, open and figuring things out together. It's a much different thing than friends of mine who've worked on more hour-long shows where the story is real locked in, or Hiro Murai on Barry was amazing, but he would want to try things, and I would go, man, you know, we can't do that because this piece of information is really important. It plays in episode 6, so we actually do need a close-up of this. You know,
right?
I always find that most of them don't want to do insert shots. I go, no, I need to see that key get picked up because it's important for something else. And I go, well, can't we just leave it, you know?
So do they submit shot lists to you before they shoot?
No.
So you know what their plan is?
No,
or you talk to them on the day?
They do what's called a tone meeting, where you sit down with usually department heads, and it's like a creative production meeting, kind of, where you just go through the whole script and you would say, okay, we have a scene. This scene takes place at a police station. And what I was thinking is I would just, you know, we would come in on a steady cam that would lead to this. And then we'd just do pretty standard coverage from here. And then he comes in this way. And we have pictures of the location and we're talking about it. And then we might, you know, and then as the showrunner, you might say, okay, but it's just, you know, it's very important that, you know, this information comes across and the performances aren't too big, is usually what I was, you know, let the comedy be subtle or this or, and know that we're going here. This is leading here. So this is the point of the story where this is happening, you know? So just don't forget that as part of, you know, but you're usually there another, you know, at least with Barry, I'm acting in it. So it's like me or Alec Berg would be there, and then people would turn around at us and we'd go, yeah, that's great, you know? But to be totally honest, the reason I directed most of the episodes in season 3 and all of season 4 was the producer, Aida Rogers, was like, you should just direct these because you're driving everybody crazy. I did get to a place that if I heard they're taking a 75 millimeter lens off the truck, I would go, what? Or he wants to zoom in, what?
Does that put a lot more on your relationship with your cinematographer?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, so Paolo Widobro, so a guy named Brandon Trosh shot the pilot, and then Paolo Widobro shot the first 2 seasons, and Carl Hersey shot the last 2 seasons. To what you're saying, James, like the tone meeting, they will have shot lists or pictures that they've taken, and the DP's there. And and the thing that is very hard is you want to make sure the director that you're talking to the director, but you're also talking to the DP, and you don't want to just look past the director and talk directly to the DP, because then it feels very isolating. So you try to make it more of a collaborative thing.
Yeah.
But a DP then has their own, usually they're the toughest person for that new director to come in to work with, because they've also have a style, and this director doesn't understand that style. Or
right.
You know, I always hear from friends who the term, we don't do that on this show. You know, you know, I'm talking to Maggie, and she wanted to tilt up from shoes up to a bed, and they go, we don't do tilts. But you know what I mean? With the DP, you do have to sit with them and work with them, and they usually are the purveyors of the look. But it became much more over time, you know, me and the DP, and then it just became this thing of like, it just became a two-way conversation between us, because it just gets too messy and it's no one's fault, you know what I mean? It's no one's fault. Yeah. It's just everybody has a different way of working, and that's why it's hard to have a TV show that has a very specific style. You know, it just didn't need to be in one way.
And what about the editing? Does the director go into the editing?
Yeah. So we would have, the director would do their director's cut, and then as the showrunner, I would come in, and that's the first cut I would see is their director's cut. And then you'd redo it all. Throw the whole thing. No, but I would call them and say, hey, just so you know, we did this, and this. Actually, you know what? Hiro Murai is going to call me when he hears this and go, no, you don't. You know, they're helping you with your thing, but that's a tough job, directing on television. It is a very, I find a very thankless job. And I just felt tired of having to, you know, I was like, and I think Aida Rogers rightfully felt the same way too, the producer, and just said, you just do it all, because I'm tired of having these people come in and leave disappointed. We always feel like we're just like, why are you here? And I'm like, I don't know, you know. I'm sorry, but because they're all so talented, you know.
Do you shoot did you shoot a new episode every week, or was it every other week?
No, we do blocks. So you'd have like a 15-day block where you would do, you know, or a 10-day block. But towards the end, and with COVID too, we would do 13 to 15-day blocks for 2 episodes. So we got many more days, and so the idea, but our days were shorter.
It was interesting though, when we were shooting film, and you know, it was like the moment was somehow more important, because you didn't have, especially on the lower budget films that I would shoot, you didn't have endless supply of raw stock. So that moment was really important. So everybody focused on the take.
Yes.
And I think, you know, the circumstances now is different. Yeah, if you're doing a performance and an actor's into something, I think it obviously is beneficial to keep rolling.
Yeah.
But sometimes when a director wants to keep rolling, but you've got to reset, like, you know, a whole table with food and wine and props, and the dog's over there in the corner, and the cat's sleeping here.
Yeah.
Suddenly they want to keep rolling, but the reset is like ridiculous. So by the time you start the actual take again, everybody's falling apart.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah,
it's very funny.
I would be on Judd Apatow movies where every take was a mag. We would shoot a whole mag. Every take. Yeah. We would have 3 cameras shooting everything. You go until you're, you know, and I was like, okay, stop, you know. Yeah. But I learned you know, it's interesting you guys say that about the focus. We had to shoot something where it was a locked off. So we're on a techno crane, and it's a locked off shot where an explosion happens, and as the smoke clears, we start to move in, right? So for the explosion part, we shot 5 plates. And we had to be out of the location. So I went around to everybody and I go, we get 1 take for each one of these plates. And because I said that, to your point, everybody, it was quiet, efficient. Yeah. Everybody was just focused. No one was at craft service. No one, it was just because we had a goal, and it was great. And I was like, oh, I should do this in the regular scenes, you know, and just be like, this is it. You might only get 1, you know, or something, and see what happens. But it was amazing how efficient that day was. And I was like, we can't mess around. We can't muck around here, because we got to get out. We got to go, you know. So I don't know. It's interesting when that works out.
Yeah, I think everybody's got a different process, haven't they? You know, I mean, we've worked with directors that will do like 15 or 20 takes, and whereas Joel and Ethan often would do one, and it would be me begging for another take, especially when it was film and you weren't quite sure
if you got
if you had it. You know what I mean?
That's the worst. Is like that's what someone was telling me. People's like, oh, if we were on film right now, I'd be freaking out because the amount of smoke that we have right now, and I can't tell.
Yeah,
if we were shooting on film, I would be sweating right now that we would go to dailies and we wouldn't be able to see anything.
Yeah.
But I don't know, did you guys find that when people did more takes, it got better, worse? I mean, because that's something.
It depends on the actor.
Really?
Depends on the
that's
actor.
True. That's true.
Yeah. Because some actors, two or three are where they're the best. And the other ones could be 11 or 12. And God forbid you get the two shot with both of them. Because what are you going to do?
We did 90 takes on a scene once. I do love those stories, about Kubrick. I mean, because like the first shot of Barry Lyndon, The Duel or something, took 3 weeks and 90 takes, and he used take 1.
Yeah.
But I bet you there's other times that he did that and used take 20 or 90 or whatever, but the stories come from those extremes, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, that you can't. Yeah, I always wonder, I'm like, did you have to do that to have the confidence? Because then it also, but I can watch Barry Lyndon and I can watch, I don't know, No Country for Old Men or something, and I'm as engaged.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, you would hear those Barry Lyndon things or the pictures of Ryan O'Neal with an oxygen tank on. Here's the thing. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I watch films, I have 3 daughters, and my 13-year-old is now really getting into movies. And we watched Godfather and Godfather 2 over 2 weekends. And you watch those films, and I can see camera bumps. I can see, the shots are just completely out of focus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't care. And in my head,
absolutely.
you go, I jump and go, oh, we got to stabilize that, or oh God, oh man, you have a buzz on the lens right here or whatever, and it's like, But I don't really care as much,
Right.
I was watching Come and See. I was watching that the other day, and it was, which is hilarious. But that film, that's another one where you watch it and you go, it's all, there's so many, you can almost feel the camera operator trip at times, or so you could feel, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I'm like, it gives it, I don't know, it gives it something. So I don't know about smoothing it out. I'm always the person that's like, why do we have to stabilize that? I think it looks fine. I think it looks real. I don't like the God mic. That became a big thing in directing.
That's an awful thing.
If an AD has a God mic, I understand. But the director with a God mic, I did a whole movie like that, Trainwreck. Judd Apatow. Okay, now stop. Now go back to 1. And some people were very, very good with it, but I had a hard time concentrating. But it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of amazing people on here. I'm sure everybody has different ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
So now that you've done this television series, what do you want to do next? Do you want to do direct a feature as opposed to TV? And do you want to be in it, or do you want to do one without being in it?
I would like to do one without being in it, but also just be able to find one emotion for a story, to follow one emotion, because so much in television is building you to something and then keeping you there so you'll come back next week. It's you're thinking in 30-minute increments, So I'm writing a feature right now with my friend Duffy, and he said, this is easy. It's 3 episodes. It's an hour and a half.
What was the strength of doing a project as a feature as opposed to a TV series? I mean, what's the difference for you?
Well, it's the storytelling. I mean, I think it's having a contained story that I don't, because sometimes you watch television and we'd be doing, I would say this all the time in the writer's room. Why does this thing need to be 4 seasons? Is this a story worth telling over 4 seasons?
Right.
Is there enough story here? And you see that all the time with television shows where you go, or I liked Joel was saying TV is beginning, middle, and end. I was listening, I was like, hey, but he's right, you know. It is. It's kind of you got to kind of keep it feeling like, why does this need to be this long? You know, you read a great, you know, or you watch like Decalogue, right? Like I really like the Decalogue, and you go, this needs to be this long. You know, this really works as a 10 thing. But, you know, I have a story that we're working on now. You know, when you tell it, you know, you just sit at, you know, the thing that I learned at some of these places at Pixar and some of these places, you would just sit down and tell the story. They would go, okay, so we were working on the movie Inside Out. And then Pete Docter would say, okay, so you've seen Inside Out, and you just go to a bar with your friend, you're having dinner, and they say, I just saw Inside Out. And I go, oh, really? That's great. Okay, what's it about? And it was our job to say what the movie was. You know? And what was interesting is you would say the movie, and you go, okay, that's interesting. You didn't mention this character. You didn't mention this scene. You didn't mention this. So maybe we don't need that stuff. You know, or do we need it? Or we got to make it feel like it's intricate. Now, that's a very specific type of film, you know, but it helped me in terms of when we talk about this, it's not a very long story. It's, you know, we go, it's about this, and then it you know, the ending kind of happens here. It feels more like a movie, you know, to try to make it a television show or a limited series, which everyone, you know, kind of likes. It's, you know, it's got to have something more to it that doesn't, because that's how I feel. I get for someone who had a television show, I do get very impatient. I kind of go like, well, where's this going? You know? Yeah. You know, or I go, or are we treading water here or whatever, you know? So I don't know. I think it's good to have that sort of thing. Just watching Godfather 2 with my daughter, and she was like, it's 4 hours, you know, or 3.5 hours or whatever. But you felt that it needed to be that way for some reason. I don't know. It really worked. I would like to make things that have you can make you know, something like Five Easy Pieces or Badlands or The Godfather or, you know, any of those things that felt so much bigger than life, but you had to see them on the big screen. And when you see some of the movies, a theater, it's like an entire experience that you can't really, it's hard to replicate, you know? And now I feel like it's kind of like, you know, when you talk about deals and stuff, it's always like the people who give you the most money are the people who will do it streaming, you know? Yeah. So, but I think a lot of people are feeling like, I don't know if we want to be doing this or not, or I don't know. It just, it's a weird time where I get both ends of it in terms of you want to get your thing made the best it can be made. But then at the same time, you also want it in a theater, you know? Yeah, right. So hopefully but you know, I'm going to go see the new Wes Anderson tonight with my kids. You know, I'm going to go see that in the theater, you know, Asteroid City. So we'll check that out. Nice. Yeah. Television is an interesting place, though. It's a different, especially on HBO, for them to let us do this show the way we want to do it. That's ostensibly a comedy. And that wasn't, especially the last 2 seasons, was very dark, you know, and they wanted that, you know, they were very much, they were like, please, no. And the reference points were all the same. We were talking about the same movies and the same photography and books and things like that. It wasn't about, oh God, we got to get butts in seats and this has got to have a big opening or anything like that. It was just, you know, so I'm interested to see how it goes. It's interesting. When I tell people, oh, I want to make a movie, they go, are you sure? I show Buster Keaton movies to my daughters and they, oh, you know, you like Buster Keaton? I go, well, I don't do any of the stunts. Because I go, oh, he directs it too. I'll let you do that, you know, and all that. But yeah, that was one of those nice things where everyone went, you know, Alec Berg, who co-created the show, went, so you're going to do this big fight? Because I had described it in the script as this long shot. And I went, no, he's got to be covered. It works for the story that he's covered, you know? And he's like, all right, asshole.
I mean, I'm sure you have more stories of people talking to you about that episode.
The Ronnie Lilly episode.
Yeah. It's what's amazing to me is not only how many people saw it and talked about it, but everybody, myself included, I don't always watch the thing at the end, but everybody, after you finish talking about what an amazing episode it is, everyone then goes, did you watch the making of afterwards? Because there's something, the first thing you have to know is you have to know where that girl came from.
Yeah.
But I bet you that is their highest rated making of ever on the history of HBO.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about those making ofs is that we have to record those before when like half the episodes aren't even cut yet.
Mhm.
So we're kind of winging it.
So are you nervous?
Not so much nervous, more just kind of like, it's like interested to see if the thing worked or not. After Saturday Night Live, that's when that's nervous because it's one shot in front of the whole nation. And
honestly, my favorite cinematic experience so far of 2019 is that episode of Barry.
Oh, that's nice.
I mean,
say, man. Wow,
and it was such a pleasure to find out you had directed it as well as written it. And it's but it's its own film. It's its own standalone. I've showed it to 5 people who were not watchers of the show before. They do now, and it works. I think there's 2 lines of dialogue in there that reference anything that's happened on the show.
Yeah, we had to put that in.
So
it made sense.
but so it's fair to talk about Barry, which is great because it is, I think, my favorite show on TV right now, and as I said, the best movie of the year so far.
Oh, thank you.
But we asked you to come in with something, and Bill suggested. He thought it'd be fun, and I thought it'd be great to talk about movies, especially when you told me what some of them were, movies that had influenced you in your creation. And
I'm trying to do this show, because everybody goes, "Oh, what TV shows were you watching?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really watch a whole lot of television. I like the show Atlanta. I like, and there was a show called Detroiters, the Tim Robinson show I liked and stuff, but I don't really watch a lot of TV, and so it was more films. And I think when I got with Brandon Trost, who shot the pilot, and then Paula Widobro, she shot the series and it shot every episode. Those were, and then in the writer's room with Alec, it was always movies and books too, and they were always a bit surprised when let's watch, You Tu Mama Tambien or whatever.
No, but it was not a surprise. It started to become clear watching the show, and then to find out it's like, oh, this guy's hardcore cineast, if you'll forgive the word, which was a delight to find out. Because somehow you don't normally associate, especially with something about TV these days. I don't associate people who are making TV with hardcore movie fanaticism.
Yeah.
It oozes out of Barry.
Oh, cool. No, I mean, I think those are the shows I liked. I remember seeing Sopranos and hearing the Emma Chile Buñuel, and you see that in those dream sequences. And in Atlanta, I know Hiro Murai, and he's like a total, we just are constantly texting, recommendations or, things on the Criterion channel, or I just saw this crazy thing. You guys got to watch it. It's always, in that world, but it's fun. Yeah. It's very fun. My kids always want to watch older movies at times. Like, oh, it's Father's Day. And they're like, we watch what you want to watch. So I said, oh, how about we want to try to watch Duck Soup. Maybe we'll watch that. I like this movie. And, his Groucho's entrance into that movie is like one of the funniest scene where the giant hail Fredonia, the people come out and he sleeps and he comes in the wrong way, and then all that stuff. I just was laughing so hard because I forgot how funny that opening was. Yeah, you just notice little or Monty Python, the Holy Grail.
How did the Marx Brothers play for your kids?
It was all right. The Harpo bits I think played better than anything because they're like silent movie, and he's so lovable. I think the Groucho stuff went over their heads a bit. I think that'll take some time. But they love Buster Keaton.
Always there.
He's always there. They love Buster Keaton movies, and then I tried to get him to watch Charlie Chaplin. They weren't really into Charlie Chaplin. Really? We were prepping Barry season 2. That's why I was watching those Vita movies, and especially Canal, which has an amazing opening shot that just goes on forever and ever and ever. And then just the whole idea of these guys underground. And it's one of those movies, it's just phenomenal. But the kind of is like motive. He had these really long, interesting shots, but they were all kind of motivated. It wasn't,
showy.
It wasn't showy, but you felt it. And I showed those to my DP and was trying to design shots that they weren't crazy showy, but they it was still cinematic. You still were using the camera. It just wasn't, things weren't just kind of flat or anything. And his the storytelling was great. And then so those movies were massively influential, especially in the last episode of season 2, the gunfight in the last episode, where I would try to just do a series of dolly shots and that was it. It was like 2 dolly shots, and that got you out of this one room into another room. And it was kind of like just, that was very Vita inspired. And then you do it, and then people watch it, and then you go, gosh, that's like Quentin Tarantino.
Yes.
And you're like, I know, he's great, or something. Like, it's like the Coen Brothers. And I'm like, no, it is very much like I guess. But I'm like, no, it's Andrzej Vajda, man. Fuck you guys.
They saw these movies too.
No, man, come on. So yeah, you get a little like, but yeah, that motivated camera work. And Polanski does the same thing too. I guess it's that Polish school of filmmaking. I don't know what it is.
But there's also because you talked about Ashes and Diamonds as well. You put that on the list. And just narratively, there's the whole sort of idea of the essentially hitman.
Yeah,
who's sort of slowly connecting to life and deciding.
Yeah, he falls in love and goes, I don't want to really do this anymore. And the opening of Ashes and Diamonds, I've shown that the most out of anything, and trying to get the tone of how to shoot the violence in Barry.
Oh, into the guy's
opening where they're just waiting with that guy, and all you hear, there's no music. There's a shot where he just shoots this Jeep, and the Jeep just goes up. It's all one shot where he runs down, shoots the Jeep, but you see everybody in the frame. It's all very well composed, and Jeep goes up. I think there's a quick cut you see the guy's dead. And then it goes right back to that initial shot. And it's just, you count the setups, and it's like 3 shots, 3 setups. Right. And you go, that's all you look. I was like, look, this is all we need. It's just these 3
very simple.
3 to 4 setups, and then we're good,
Which is why we were talking before you came on about the, I don't know when you watch them or if you're even aware of, I have no idea what it's like to be doing your show, but the 5th episode that we've discussed played right after the giant hour and 45-minute Game of Thrones battle episode.
Yeah.
Which again is just it's night and day. They're sort of here, they have $300 trillion and 4,000 setups and 1 billion extras and all the CG in the world. And here's a fight scene that, as you say, is just very, very spare and yet I would argue significantly more engaging. Do you when did you first come across Wajda? Was that
I think I saw him just through I get really excited by filmmakers like lists, if a filmmaker will say their favorite films, and if it's something that I haven't seen before, it takes you down a different road. And his name would show up, especially Ashes and Diamonds would show up on some of these lists, and then Kubrick, like Danton, that movie. And I was like, I should try to find that.
You had Y Tu Mamá, you mentioned it earlier too. Y Tu Mamá También, brilliantly directed, but in terms of the Barry connection.
We have a thing, Paula Huidobro, our DP, she used to work for Emmanuel Lubezki. She's worked with him a couple of times as an operator. And I don't usually like going handheld, especially on 30-minute comedy, because I just feel like it's done a lot. And so there was this thing, because his nickname, I think a lot of people know, is Chivo. So I would say, you can go handheld, but it's got to be Chivo handheld. And, well, what's that? So we watched Y Tu Mamá También, the handheld and that, and the way, and the light is very natural.
Yeah.
I just like the way it's lit. And so Chivo handheld is like a shorthand on the Barry set. And there's a shot in the Ronnie Lilly episode where I'm in a car, and it's moving, and it's a rig on a car, and it's a shot's fully just taken right out of Y Tu Mamá También of one of the kids. And Paula, we were lining it up, and she went, well, we go higher and more to the left. It looks like, your fucking favorite movie. I think Children of Men is
an amazing movie.
I try. That might be my favorite one of his. I've seen that maybe 20 times. I think I was on Saturday Night Live, and I saw that movie, I want to say at least 10 times in the theater. I kept on grabbing people going, you got to go see this. You got to go see this. We got to go see this movie. And I just thought it was phenomenal. It's insane. And I watched that recently That could easily have been on the list too. That's one I always watch to just get excited about doing this stuff. So much of it too is just an inspiration. It doesn't have, and like watching the stuff that makes you excited.
Yeah,
that makes you want to make movies.
Yeah, yeah. I remember
aspire to something,
wanting to make movies, but then watching your stuff and being like, wow, this is like so sleek to me. And I'm like, how would I ever get a chance to do this? Taxi Driver was the first time I saw something where it unlocked what you could do in movies, where he's on the phone with her and he's saying, hey, did you get my flowers? And you could tell she's turning him down. And the camera dollies off of him while he's still talking. Oh, you can do that, And also when he shoots Keitel, the idea of point of view, that really, when he walked, Suck on This, that famous thing. He shoots Keitel in any other movie, music, he's often, whatever. But he shoots him, and then he just follows him and he sits back down. And now it's just, the point of view is you're someone on the stoop across the street. Right. And you just saw a guy shoot another guy. And now it's just you and the shooter sat down and you guys are just sitting there. and it works on some level. Yeah.
You mentioned Kurosawa's Stray Dog.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one of those great, I love his early crime movies.
Yeah.
He did an Ed McBain book, for God's sake, with King's Ransom.
High and Low, yeah.
Oh, High and Low,
yeah. I'm well, if you've seen season 1 of Barry, you'll know I'm a massive fan of Kurosawa, because we had a joke in it where the police chief is describing, he's giving a big press conference and he's describing how these two, his theory of how these two rival, this one guy pitted these two rival people against rival gangs against each other. And he says, much like the Kurosawa movie Yojimbo. And then he says, because I'll take questions now. And the first reporter says, how do you spell Yojimbo? He goes, well, I think it's just how it sounds. Yo, Y-O, J-J-M, and B-O. Next question. It's like, was that the only film he made? Oh, God, no. He made a lot of movies, and they don't care at all about the crime. There's just all these questions about Kurosawa, and you hear it going on in the background of a bar. Alec Berg wrote all that. My favorite line was, they say, where can we get these movies? And he goes, I don't have that information in front of me, but I think you can stream them now. There's various streaming platforms that I'm sure have it, and of course video stores, and just very official. But he knows everything about Kurosawa. But I think I like Stray Dog. It's the economy of the storytelling in it. The first line of that movie is, I lost my gun.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh gosh, now you're in. And just how each scene, there's a thing, we kind of beat it to death in the writer's room, is each scene needs to be causal. Each scene kind of leads to the next scene, and or something's happened in a scene that now has changed things. So it's basically things need to happen. And each scene of that it's this precision in the writing. Another one, for some reason, I don't know why, and it's not Kurosawa, is Asphalt Jungle.
Yeah.
Sterling Hayden at the end of Asphalt Jungle.
It's not the writing show, and I shouldn't take advantage of it too much, but by what you just said about how every sequence, every scene has to have consequence and lead to the next. I think one of the things I love about Barry is that not only does every scene cause the next one, but I find very often you come towards the end of a scene and you've created a scenario that's so unthinkable. I go like, how the fuck are they going to get out of this?
Yeah.
You take characters to places that they can't easily come back from by the next episode, which is fascinating.
Well, we always try to make it where sometimes, it's like you start from the ending of a thing and you kind of work backwards, and you kind of say, oh, it'd be more interesting if we know we want this to happen, so let's hide it by creating these things that we know isn't going to really matter, but still makes sense, So you think it's going to go there, and then you take a big left turn or whatever. But I will say, at the end of season 2, I mean, Alec and I just had dinner last week, and I go, so what do you think happens? And he goes, man, I don't know. We really kind of wrote ourselves into a corner here. So.
Well, did you know at the end of season 1? Because I have never felt like a show was done in the best way possible.
Oh, everybody said that. And then what I thought was cool, when we went into writing the second season, it was the first thing I said, well, what does everybody think happened to Moss? And Liz Sarnoff our writer, she's so good at kind of going, why are you start? Because I initially had I always start every season by I kind of go into an office by myself for a month and I write out basically like a big outline, an arc for the season. It's pretty detailed. And then I let the room kind of just demolish it, and it's just this idea of you just want to be wrong fast. You're going to be wrong, but let's just try to be wrong as fast as possible. And so write it all out and then I'll be like, what do you think? And I had it starting in the cabin, with Kusno waking up, going, Janice, where are you and everything. And she went, who cares about that? I want to start it off with a big, start it off with a group of people we don't know. And I had this idea of Fuchs having another Barry. So she pitched, it should be Fuchs's new Barry going on a thing and it going wrong. And that's how they get his DNA and all that shit. Like, let's just, cut through the crap. And that's where it's good with a writer's room you have people telling you where you fuck up a lot. And going back to Stray Dog, that's what Red Kurosawa, they would have, I forget the guy's name, but he would write with 5 guys. And then he had one guy was this older writer who wouldn't say anything. He would just kind of sit there and they would all write and they would hand their pages to him and he would read it and kind of go, yeah, whatever. And then and I might get this wrong, but he basically said the ending of Act 1 was him losing his gun.
Right.
And this guy said, you should make that the first line of the movie.
Yeah.
Because now shit's happening. Everything was set up to him losing his gun. And let's find, it's the screenwriting 101, but this is in the 40s in Japan. Is like,
yeah,
let's find out about him on the run as opposed to like this boring setup. Right. And it was like, oh, okay. Apparently he's also the guy who said the guy in Akiru should just die in the middle of the movie. He was like, just have him die now. And then we'll see how the people.
Jesus.
And I was like, oh, that's cool.
You talked about No Country for Old Men.
Oh, yeah.
Which I just any excuse to talk about No Country for Old
Men. I love that movie. But I was knocked out by that movie. I'm
thinking Josh Brolin's exit from the film.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was in the book, too. I read the book. And that idea, too, about, in the way they shot that, too, where they don't do a lot of handheld stuff, but it was handheld and they just, Tommy Lee Jones, and he just passes him. He's just dead. And I remember I almost thought, well, that wasn't him. That's not him on the ground. Oh, that's somebody else got killed. Yeah. There's no way that happened. And that the idea that, to me, that was the point of the movie, is that we're setting up this thing that you've seen a lot of times as a movie, these guys on the run or whatever. But in reality, here's what happens. This guy gets murdered. Right. And I will say for Barry, again, I watched that one with their DP. And another movie I had, I think, on the list was Mother.
Yeah.
By
Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho. Yeah. And we would just count setups and go, look what they did with four setups. That, obviously they could have cut shit out, but look how much they made that work with. David Cronenberg is another guy. I watched The Brood a couple of times, and I was like, look at there's that's like 2 setups. And you got the whole thing. Or Carol Reed movies. It's always just with that movie, just the simplicity of the directing and the way they shot action in that movie. It was just you're always kind of from the point of view of the person being attacked, and no music again, which I just really like. Yeah, I think that movie just really is there. I think that movie just is amazing.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Incredibly
it's weird
because
it's not obviously not their original material, and I'm a gigantic fan of them as writers. But I do find it's one like that I've probably seen that as many times as I've seen Miller's Crossing.
Yeah. I mean, they're phenomenal writers. And I mean, A Serious Man is another one of theirs that I thought was really great. Did you the first time? I loved it.
Oh, did you? Okay.
A lot of people watch their movies like that, Big Lebowski, whatever. They go, what? I saw Serious Man and I just was like knocked out by it. But yeah, the 2 people I saw it with were like, what the hell is that?
I thought with all of them, even the ones I walk out of loving, I like them better the second time and then the third time.
You catch so many things.
I hated Lebowski.
Yeah.
I can't begin to tell you how much I felt betrayed and ripped off. And finally someone was like, reminded me, like, you do say they have. I was like, not this one. This one's good. And then the second time I saw it, I was like, because I had no idea what. I was demanding things of the film that it was not interested in
Yeah,
giving me.
man. That's why.
Once I knew that,
Just like Blow Up.
Yeah.
once I knew that, I was in heaven.
Yeah. Wait, what about Blow Up? You didn't like Blow Up?
He didn't like Blow Up.
Really?
It's one of those. I try to be scrupulous about this stuff. I know the difference between I didn't like it and it's bad. And I've always said Blow Up is just Blow Up is one of those movies that just.
Love and Death, the Woody Allen
Yeah.
movie. That movie really makes me laugh. That's a movie John Mulaney and I talk about a lot, and it really makes us laugh. But I absolutely love that movie.
You were, as a kid, really into Stanley Kubrick, right?
Yes, yeah.
What was the first Kubrick movie you saw?
The Shining on TBS. I just noticed immediately. You could be flipping through the channels and you would land on a Kubrick movie for 2 seconds. You would know it's a Kubrick movie. You know, the quality of it, the way it's shot, the blown out, especially if it's color, the blown out windows, the framing. And then watching 2001, Dr. Strangelove, which I'll admit the first time I saw it was totally over my head. I thought it was really funny, but my dad was laughing really hard and I didn't fully get it. Now it's one of my favorite movies.
And then you saw the making of The Shining.
I was 20 or 21 and they came out with that DVD set with the making of The Shining, which you could not find anywhere. And we all sat around a TV at my friend Nick Jasinovich's house and Justin Carlton, these two guys that I was buddies with, who have since to have very good careers. And we're sitting at their small apartment in Burbank and we watched the making of The Shining, I think 3 times in a row, because we could not believe there was Stanley Kubrick. And the first time you see him, you know, his daughter Vivian made the documentary and you're just following Jack Nicholson through the Overlook set. And then it arrives at this big burly guy in a coat who's balding with the big glasses and a giant beard. And that's Kubrick. And up until that moment, I thought he was British.
Oh, that's
so when he starts talking like this and he's like, all right, Shelley, what we have to do here is we have to get you over to the, there's one point where he's like, I think they should play in a wide shot considering the situation. And I was like, wow. This is crazy. He's from the Bronx. He was just very kind of impatient, you know, especially with Shelley Duvall in that documentary.
You know, my favorite Kubrick movie is it's arguably my favorite movie of all time is Paths of Glory. And every time I see Paths of Glory, and I've seen it easily 8 times, and every time I feel like it was an amazing 2-hour and 48-minute movie that just sort of, and then you look and it's been 88 minutes.
Yeah.
Like that movie just starts. Bang.
Yeah, it starts, bang, you're in it. George McCready was like one of my favorite actors of that time.
Yeah, I love George.
Oh, man, never left the trenches. I just think he's so funny. He's
That's
so
right.
good in that movie.
He is funny. It's not meant to, I don't know if it's meant to be funny.
Right. But that's what Kubrick does is he gets these performances from people that are very big sometimes where like
Sterling Hayden. Right. That's obviously meant to be funny, but it's still big. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I read that George C. Scott did not get in Dr. Strangelove why he was making him do all this.
That's a better example. Yeah.
Remember when he falls at one point in the war room and he goes, they're going to collaborate. But you could just tell Kubrick is just running on his instincts. A big aha one for me, seeing The Evil Dead, because it was shot on small 16 millimeter cameras, you know, like an Arri BL and, you know, Arri S, I think. And it was a bunch of 20-year-olds making a movie. And I could see, you know, it was kind of like punk rock, you know, it was like, I could see how they could do that, how they did it. And I went, oh, I think I could do that, you know, get those camera angles and make something like that. You know, I felt very confident. And
is that right around when you started making like little short films?
Yeah, little short videos with my sisters. Video wasn't what it is now. And so I went, well, I want to shoot on film. And they had, 4 Avids. And I went, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So I applied there and made some short films and immediately lost all my confidence because the films I made no one liked.
At some point in an interview, you talked about like what makes a screenplay honest. Like, and that it all has to start with a screenplay. And you talked about Kurosawa, and a great director can't make a bad screenplay great. He might be able to make it okay or better. So what makes a screenplay honest?
I'm dealing with this constantly, I mean, I'm writing something now, and I'm learning that it's basically a balance between logic and emotion and emotional honesty. I'm friends with this George Saunders, an amazing writer, and he talks about this. And he has a book called A Swim in the Pond in the Rain, where he breaks down these Russian short stories. And it's all stuff that, when I was working on Barry, we would do in the writer's room. It's like, you always have to be escalating, meaning each scene has to kind of build up to the next, and it's getting, more exciting. Or as I think Billy Wilder said it, you always want to just tighten the noose around the audience's neck and just keep tightening it as the movie keeps moving. And then this thing of causality, when I worked at South Park, I learned this, which was, you don't say something as this happens and then this happens and then this happens. You say this happens, so therefore this happens, so therefore this happens, but then this happens, so now this happens. And
well, I like that. I like that term. I like that idea of causality, and that you're always sort of checking yourself on a story, a screenplay. Like, is this honest? Is this true?
Everything has to kind of build off the next thing. We would try to do that on Barry, and you would have things where, you would have a scene and go, well, why is this in here? And I learned it. The best thing, when you edit a thing, I mean, that's the best thing you can do if you write a screenplay, is give it to an editor. My friends who are editors,
right?
I always give my scripts to editors to give notes, because they have set, just from the work that they do, they have to craft a story. They just understand, the good ones understand what makes a story work. And they will always tell me, that's an interesting thing. I mean, you don't need it, because you're already kind of saying that in this scene.
That's
or it's like, I know why you're putting this in here to give it kind of a mood, but I feel like you're kind of getting that here, and I just had an experience recently where I had this a thing I'm working on, where I had like two editors all said, I don't think the movie really starts until this scene on page 25. And I realized, oh yeah, everything up until then is kind of backstory. And that's like, I think you want to start right here. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. And that's the best.
So Barry is one of those shows for me. And I've unlike you, I've watched a lot of television. Well, this is at least last 20 years have been this, 25 years since The Sopranos, this amazing run of television.
Oh yeah. It's so hard to do that, where you go, that's surprising, but inevitable.
Movie you loved in high school?
If I had to pick one movie I loved in high school, it'd probably be Barton Fink. Yeah, that movie had a very big effect on me. Even though I saw it when I was in middle school, it was a movie that, I would show friends, and I would say 90% of them didn't get it and were like, that was weird. But I had the confidence of kind of going, no, there's so much more going on in this thing, than what's happening, and the kind of bravery of the filmmakers to kind of just trust their instincts.
And you love the Coen brothers, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's embarrassing. Yeah. I had dinner with a director not too long ago, and they said, well, it's clear that you like the Coen brothers. I was like, yeah, I do.
Yeah. But I'm right there with you. It's just too, they can't help but make it interesting.
And they've been for the most part, they're incredibly consistent too.
Totally.
I mean, it's for people that lay in their career to be making, that it came out. This is probably now 10 years ago, but when A Serious Man and Inside Llewellyn Davis, both those came out, I was like, these are two of their best movies. These are like masterpieces. I like Burn After Reading Aloud.
I like Burn After Reading.
J.K. Simmons is so funny in that movie.
Yeah, right. There's just so much funny in there. Yeah.
The actual CIA guys trying to piece together what's happening is one of the funniest things. I think The Apartment's a great movie.
The Apartment is a great movie. That's why your programming for TCM was so interesting, because you picked a Billy Wilder movie when you picked a night to
Five
program.
Graves to Cairo, which is
You did right. You did Five Graves to Cairo, which is not.
which I love that film. I think that's one of my favorite.
That's
movies.
the year before he made Double Indemnity.
Yeah, that movie is just fantastic. Sunset Boulevard too. I just recently rewatched that, and that really holds up. I mean, any of those kind of Lubitsch, Wilder, Preston Sturges, anything like that. I kind of, it doesn't really matter what it is. I want to go check it out.
Were you a good director of actors? Or are you a good director of actors?
I don't know. I mean, I think so. I mean, I think because I am an actor, I can kind of feel their, insecurity and I end up doing things that directors do that drive me crazy. I do to actors, where I over explain something. Yeah. The worst thing you could do is be kind of working it out out loud in front of an actor, because they get very confused. And I've done that a couple of times or I've given terrible direction of like, it's a thing where you're scared, but you're also kind of happy. And they're like, what? And I'm like, you know what? Let me go think about this for a second. Let me see the script.
Have you gotten pushback? Like,
yeah. And again, pretty much rightfully so. If I gave a direction that made zero sense, but if the thing is, if you've written the thing, that's kind of your job as a director. A lot of it's is done because, it's the same as casting, because you've written it, you understand the emotions and where everything's at. But then if an actor has an idea that kind of counters that, you kind of know whether what they're wanting to do or their questions or wherever it's leading, whether it still works for the whole of the story, But also actors just don't want to look like an idiot, they just don't want to look stupid. So they really don't want to look stupid. So, and I relate to that. So they just, the more you can make actors feel comfortable and be a good audience, and kind of see what they're bringing to it, and then kind of lightly. Most of my direction, honestly, is do less. That's probably my big.
Right.
Like you can do less.
Can you give me 10% less? Right.
Yeah, I'm always saying do less, and sometimes people, if I do less, and I'm like barely saying, it's like, yeah, it'd be great. The camera's like right in your face, don't worry about it,
The Last Detail is so good.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies.